Good morning everybody and welcome to this week's edition of the RDA Central West Business Leaders Breakfast, and I'm really excited to be joined by Daniel Perkiss, the CEO of the Orange X Services Club. Daniel, welcome to breakfast.
Thank you, Sam.
Great to have you here and fantastic that we're joining you live from the Orange X Services Club this morning. But Daniel, you are the CEO for one of the largest hospitality businesses in our region. It's a major employer. But for our viewers that might not know your journey, I guess, professionally into the club's industry or your journey to the Central West, do you mind giving our viewers a little bit of a background, I guess, of what led you to the club's industry, and then secondly, what led you to the Central West?
Well, I guess firstly, like many university students, I was studying IT at Wollongong University and found myself funding that through casual bar work in a small registered club. And at some point during that journey, after about 3 years, I realised IT was not my chosen or not meant for me, and then it morphed into some more studies in hospitality and business. So that, it was more by chance than anything that I ended up in the industry. And then my journey to the Central West has been one of, again, a bit of luck, if anything. I spent a bit of time travelling after my last role, and this job popped up. It was a great opportunity, and we relocated.
Yeah, absolutely. The Central West has a lot of opportunities for a lot of people to make the move, like I did as well, probably about the same time that you and your family made the move. I guess, on a bit of a tangent, you said you started in IT. What are some of the skills you learned in IT that have helped in your business journey?
Oh look, I mean, IT moves so quickly. So back in the early 2000s, what we studied back then is somewhat prehistoric by now, but different principles in business information systems and how you link IT into business portals and whatnot, and the programming behind it. I guess it's given me an insight. It's now a portfolio that I delegate. So,
as all good managers.
Yeah. So.
But look, and I think you're right, technology is on a kind of exponential growth rate, so every business has had to adapt in recent times, but I think probably having that experience probably is a great skill set to bring into the role. Now, the Services Club, it's a major employer in our region, as I touched on earlier. I think you have something like 220 different staff, you have a number of different pursuits. What are some of the key offerings that the Services Club provides, and some of the key projects that the Services Club is aiming to deliver in the kind of short to medium term?
Okay, so I mean, we've got various business units. So we've got the F&B offerings, which are your traditional club offerings. We also have a very unique offering in the Greenhouse of Orange, which is on level 1 of this building. There's also sporting pursuits like lawn bowls, golf. There's the accommodation business, which is quite sizable for our operation and very complementary to the core business of the club. And then we've got a very large conferencing and events business here.
Yeah, absolutely. So the accommodation, that's the Mercure just on the back of us where we are this morning. I guess that probably is a nice dovetail into my next question. What have been COVID-19? It's changed the way businesses have had to operate, and I imagine in your organisation as a services club it's been quite dramatic. What have been some of the challenges that COVID-19 have thrown up for your business?
Well, I mean, the greatest challenge was the mandatory shutdown on the 23rd of March, but the journey started quite a bit before that. So the executive management team, we set up a bit of a war room, working on scenarios and how it may or may not impact our business. It was quite surprising how quick they shut us down. Prior to that, through the weeks leading into that back end of March, we saw certainly the conference and events business that was decimated, and the accommodation business as well. Millions of dollars worth of forward bookings just ripped out. So we were already working on pretty much doomsday scenarios at that point in time. So that was one of the challenges. That was one of the financial challenges. But psychologically, with the workforce at that point, over 200 people. The stand down provisions came along, and how we dealt with standing down a workforce of that size, certainly in my professional career, the absolute hardest thing I've had to do. The club worked on different strategies to, and I won't detail all of them, but to provide assistance, both financial and support mechanisms for our team. So as we work through that, and trying to shut down a $30 million business with very little notice is a challenge. We learnt from it. We've it brought out some great characteristic skills in people, and probably one of the positives was the team bonding through it. We were all in it together, and we got to a position, but COVID was difficult. It was all new to everyone. There was no book that told you how to do it, so it was utilising people's best skill sets, and that's where true character really shone.
And I guess being the leader of an organisation of this size, going through a challenge of this nature, I guess what are some of the things you learned from a leadership perspective during this period for yourself?
I think listening to your people, that was certainly key. Taking different opinions on board. We really workshopped a position we had to get to collectively, and then so it wasn't an autocratic type. Let's as a leader, we're doing this. It was collectively. Here's the legislation. It's all new to us. Let's no one's right or wrong in this scenario, but let's workshop different plays, and collectively we had a blueprint or a path that we went on collectively to get to a point.
Now, we've talked about COVID and how it's when it's kicked off, these were some of the challenges for your business. What can you forecast might be some of the medium-term impacts for the Services Club? And have there been, I know a lot of businesses have had to adapt as a result of the scenario that we find ourselves. Have there been any positive adaptations or agility being shown by the organisation as a result of COVID?
Well, the first component of that question, I guess, the challenges we see, without being pessimistic, that we are seeing outbreaks. So we've learnt from the shutdown, if there is another mandatory, or we pray that there's not in Orange, but we have to be prepared for a scenario like that. So if that occurs, we go through the motions. We take health as the number one priority, and everything else follows thereafter. So that is a potential challenge. You'll probably talk about JobKeeper down the track, but I really see the September cliff that people talk about, particularly in a multifaceted business like this, where different elements of it have rebounded. We're back open, we're trading quite well in some areas, but there's other areas that, because of the restrictions and the limitations, those whole departments are completely shut. So the in or out type JobKeeper scenario, when we hit September into early October, there are quite a few challenges from an industrial relations perspective. So what we're advocating for and talking to people in our industry that go back to government is all about extending some of the flexibility provisions for departments and areas that haven't reopened, because it'd be counterintuitive to go and have to execute some of those, I don't want to use the word redundancy too much, but that's the end result. If something's not open, and we really don't want to do that, we'd prefer to redeploy where possible. But if we've gone through a JobKeeper program of over 6 months or thereabouts, why would we then just switch from one scenario back to what was pre-COVID IR legislation that's going to force many businesses to do things that they don't want to have to do? So I hope that there's a mature discussion between business, between government, and between the unions to come up with something that's in the best interests of the whole workforce, and I think Australia will benefit from that long term.
Yeah, I think you're right. And the other challenge is one of the common feedbacks that we've got here at RDA is the importance of good staff during this challenging period. And like you touched on there, you've supported your staff through that period. You want to make sure you can keep them on, because once a staff member leaves and the skills they take with them, you've got to upskill somebody else and that in itself brings challenges. And I imagine in a large organisation that has a lot of different facets like this one, good staff is probably the backbone of keeping the organisation agile, as you said earlier.
Oh, absolutely. We work so hard on upskilling our staff, on building a quality workforce. In a service-based industry like this one, you're only as good as the people that you've got working for you. I mean, one perfect example, at the AGM on Wednesday night, we awarded life membership to our executive assistant, Julie Archer, 35 years, started at the club as a member in 1977, I believe, and joined. That was in a membership capacity. A few years later, she joined as an employee. The wealth of knowledge and someone of her quality, she's given us over a year's handover. So that retention and the passing down of the knowledge and the history of the club is fantastic, and that's the kind of employee we want here at the club. So we don't want to see an event like COVID wreck that history of having great long-standing employees that have to go find employment elsewhere. So again, we will be talking to the different political leaders to be advocating for flexibility, and certainly in this environment, as we move into an unemployment rate of circa 10%, I think it's going to be in the best interests of everyone to have a job, maybe with slightly different conditions, given that we are now in a completely different world than we were 6 or 12 months ago. Yeah,
I think you're absolutely right. It's an unprecedented scenario that we find ourselves in, so I think you're going to need to adapt, and people are going to need to have flexibility from a business perspective, a job perspective, I think, to come through the other side. Now, I just want to touch on, and we mentioned it before, a very large membership-based organisation, the Services Club. I think you have 20,000 members. What are some of the logistical challenges of managing, I guess, a membership base of that size? And then on the flip side of that, I guess, what are some of the other rewarding aspects that brings with it?
Oh, look, I mean, when you take into account the families and the children in Orange, we have a very, very large proportion of this community that are members of the club. People have got different wants and needs to be a member here, whether it's the knitting group all the way through to bowlers, golfers, or the younger generation that will use the greenhouse for their social pursuits. There's many different aspects, and what we do is we try and allocate resources as we see fit. The board looks at the membership base and says, okay, well, there's this many people enjoying this aspect, and there's other push and pull factors like our investment into golf up at the Wentworth precinct. That has other flow-on effects. We believe, as a large organisation in town, that there's a tourism aspect, there's a sporting aspect, there's all the different things with golf, that we should have 2 quality courses in Orange. We've got that with Duntry League. We're looking to really improve the course at Wentworth, and then the facilities will follow that.
Yeah, absolutely. So look, I'm just going to change tack a little bit, and we can come back to have a chat about Wentworth Golf Course a little bit later, but I'm just going to hit you with the Fast Five. It's where we ask our special guest a little bit more about them to understand what makes them tick. Now, Daniel, we all are obsessed with apps on our phones. I've got plenty of them. If you had to delete all your apps but keep 3, which ones do you think are the ones you use all the time?
Oh, from a business point of view, I'd keep the BI tool. So that's fantastic in tracking sales and quarterly hour data from a trend perspective. So I'd keep that. From a practical point of view, I've got one that gives me swell data, tide data, wind data. So Seabreeze is a fantastic app for when I'm down on the coast surfing or fishing. And then I guess from a relaxation point of view, I do like my Tab app on a Saturday. I'm not a huge punter, but I enjoy a little flutter on a Saturday afternoon. Yeah,
nice. I'm a Fox Sports person. I just or the ABC app, and probably AFL because I'm a big AFL man. Hidden gem of the Central West. We've got so many fantastic offerings across the region, places to showcase when you have visiting family or rallies coming in. What would be one of the fantastic places you'd like to showcase outside of the Services Club if you had visiting guests coming to the Central West?
I'll give you a quick 3. I guess the first one, we love taking the kids out to the caves out there to the west of town. Yep. They can explore and see some of the wildlife out there. A little drive into historic Millthorpe is always good, and the old Mill Cafe there is fantastic. And there's one that's coming up over near Harvey Norman in East Orange that I'm very excited about. There's a new pie shop, the Orange Pie Shop. So we're looking forward to seeing what that brings. Okay, well, I'm quite partial to a good pie, so we might have to put the links up to the Orange Pie Shop, Orange Pie Company, I think it was, but we'll chuck those details up. And I tend to agree. I think the Boronor Caves out there,
absolute little hidden gem and fantastic with young kids and anyone really to have a nice walk around. And it's not what you expect. You rock up there and it's just this fantastic little space. Now, if you could be on a reality TV show, which one do you think you'd be on? And
no.
Okay.
No.
I would. Okay, it's my guilty pleasure, but I think Survivor is probably the pick of reality shows that I watch, and I think it'd be a good test to go on to that one. Now, if you were at the Olympics, which sport would you have loved to have competed in?
Oh, well, I mean, I believe Japan's been
Postponed to 2021?
But an exciting addition to the Olympics is surfing, so that'd be fantastic.
Okay, yeah, no, look, it's I think it's the first time that they've done surfing on at the Olympics, so it'll be interesting to see how that one goes. And lastly, last book you've read or movie that you've seen that you'd recommend to somebody?
Well, look, since COVID hit, it's all been the Australian Financial Review, really, for me. It's pretty boring, but look, there's a great book out there on a recent SAS soldier. The author's Keith Fennell. He's an Illawarra local, and his book's called Warrior Brothers. It takes the journey of him joining the military and his progression through to SAS, some of the challenges and absolute challenges that he faced during that career through Iraq, Afghanistan and whatnot. So I found that to be a fantastic read. Okay,
well we'll fish out the Keith Fennell book, Warrior Brothers, I think it was, Daniel. We'll hit the link up to that book on the chat after this morning. Now, just getting back onto some of the different roles that the Services Club play, we mentioned it before we started recording this morning. The Services Club, it's a social place as well, as much as the different events that you host and stuff like that. And can you tell us a little bit about that? That I know you've got a lot of your regular members that come in, every couple of days or every day to catch up with friends for a social aspect. How has that been impacted by COVID, and what kind of anecdotal feedback have you got?
Oh, look, I mean, some of the things that people love about clubs are just the real basic things like bingo and meat raffles and badge draws. Some of them have been impacted just due to the square metre and rule, and we really don't want to be rolling out promotions that draw big crowds at the one time. Would rather let people decide when they come to the club. Large gatherings, it's against the spirit of the legislation and the health measures that we're trying to implement to keep everyone safe. So I know people are missing some of those things, but would rather keep a safe venue rather than appease some of the groups. And there will be a time in the future that we can get back to badge draws and meat raffles. So
we all love a good meat raffle.
Absolutely. Particularly at Christmas time when you win a nice big ham.
Yeah, how good's that? We've all been there. It's always a little hidden gem when you come down to the club and you score yourself a win in the meat raffle. But look, another thing that we touched on briefly earlier was the Wentworth Golf Club. Mm-hmm. Now, I believe the Services Club merged with the Wentworth Golf Club maybe in April earlier this year. What is the kind of long-term ambition? And we mentioned about that earlier. What's the ambition, I guess, and the future development of that site?
Right, so I guess the whole journey's somewhat convoluted, but I'll try and summarise it into a quick snapshot. Back in early 2019, the club commissioned a report on the sporting clubs and the viability and future viability of each one of them in Orange, and that was a voluntary program that the different groups and clubs participated in. What it showed was, we know that golf is probably a sport that struggles a little bit financially. We've seen lots of golf club close. Certainly bowling clubs across New South Wales have gone, in the last 7 years, from around 56,000 participants down to about 35,000 participants. So there's been a big decline in participation in bowls. So we really wanted to take that macro view and say, we want bowls, we want golf in Orange as the large club in town. How do we underwrite those two activities for the participants? And there was an opportunity. The country club lease was due to expire in 2025, and we all know that site's now being prepared for the big sporting precinct. Wentworth, their clubhouse, unfortunately burnt down. It created an opportunity for both of those two cohorts of golfers to combine. We've moved our golfers up there. That happened in late March, and that's been an absolute success. So when we do hit that critical mass in terms of golfers and or bowlers in one facility, we end up with a viable business model. So the golfers are up there. We're working now on building, or certainly planning for the build of the new clubhouse. The final one is we've got 100 odd bowlers out at the country club, which we're still looking after there, but we need to find a new home for them. It will be at Wentworth, so we'll build a multi-purpose sporting complex up at Wentworth. We see that long term as a great area in that southwestern corridor of Orange. As the link road goes around, the Shirley estate is built. It's and there's very little from a hospitality point of view out that end of town. So we see that as a growth area. We see by bringing the two groups of golfers into that one home, our bowlers, and we are in advanced discussions with Orange City Bowling Club about a potential amalgamation there. So if they come on board and we relocate all the bowls in town up to there, we can have fantastic new facilities that really underpins the future of both bowls and golf for the long term in the town, and becomes also a place where people want to visit for competitions, whether it be if Orange City choose to come on board the Golden Eagle and different things. They're things that we can really turbocharge with the strength of OESC backing it.
Yeah, no, I think that's a fair point, and it'll, as you said, it's going to activate that part of the town, out of Orange, I guess, but also the ability to attract events down the track, events and other visitors to our region as a result, I think is a real positive. One of the other offerings that the Services Club has here, where we are this morning, is the greenhouse. We mentioned it earlier. I have partaken up at the greenhouse a couple of times myself. Now, can you tell us a little bit about, I guess, the journey to establish the greenhouse? What was the ambition of the space? And with any new offering, were there any challenges that the Services Club had to overcome to deliver what is now the product that we all know?
Certainly, I mean, the greenhouse was pre-me, so the planning was ongoing from probably 7 odd years ago. To convert essentially a rooftop into a whole precinct of dwellings and entertainment spaces, it was very ambitious. I think the finished product is outstanding. There was a few little flaws in terms of operational flows and whatnot, so we're currently undertaking a project to bring the greenhouse essentially down onto the ground floor, so it makes the traffic flow and the operational flows a lot more efficient and easier, and also all-weather access. So that one was a dilemma, but we're addressing that now. You'll actually come from the back reception up a nice set of stairs, and there's a lift next to it. You'll be met by a maitre d' that can then send you out to the different areas, and that'll be all weather, air conditioned. That space will allow the flow and getting into the greenhouse to be a lot easier.
Well, I know in the family room there you've got a fantastic busy board, so that's especially in the wet weather, it's fantastic with a young family. That busy board's been utilised a couple of times, so there you go.
So one of the big changes with the greenhouse for last year was, and we can't forget, we had the dust storms and the smoke and all those things through the summer, but the greenhouse was very, very well patronised this last summer. We went for a more relaxed menu, the naughty food you want to eat while you're having a beer out there watching the sport, your chicken wings, your hamburgers, your wedges, just those easy eat platters, but we implemented things like pool tables, a little satellite TAB up there so you could have a punt on the weekend, and games like foosball and table tennis and all those different things that just keep people entertained. And the big TV was a massive success, where we ran movie nights for kids and different things. So I think it's about 13 square metres. You can watch that from anywhere, and it's fantastic watching the cricket up there in summer.
Yeah, I bet. So look, we're coming towards the end of this morning's chat, so I really appreciate you giving up your time this morning. I just wanted to make mention that you moved to the Central West semi-recently, as I have. I guess, what was one of the catalysts for you to make the move? And I think it leads into a second part of that question. With COVID-19, a lot of people are reconsidering, their futures. And what would be some of the reasons that you would encourage people to look to the Central West as a potential opportunity for them to bring their skills and their families?
Oh, well, I mean, certainly for someone of, I guess, our age group, there's an abundance of opportunity from a professional aspect out here. We're seeing people move out here, driven by that, whether it be the vast offerings of economic kind of opportunity, be it the mines, be it education, be it hospitality, professional services, whatever it may be. And still, I mean, people that have been in Orange for the last 5-10 years would argue that it's not affordable housing, but I'd say, compared to the metropolitan centres, there is quite cheap housing and a great lifestyle. I've got a daughter in year 1 at Orange Public School, and we couldn't speak highly enough about that education offering over there. So that ticks a lot of the boxes.
Yeah, absolutely, and I think that's what's such an attractive proposition, I guess, for Orange and the Central West is because when people look to move, they're looking at job opportunities, school offerings for the kids, health offerings, and I think the amenity. And I think if we think about those 4 elements, the Central West has all of those covered in spades, which I think is fantastic. Now, Daniel, if viewers want to engage with the Services Club or to learn more about yourself or the different offerings that the Services Club have, what's the easiest way that they can do that? And we're happy to put up any details after today's chat.
Oh, look, jump online to oesc.com. We've got Facebook, LinkedIn. There's all the different kind of
And we're happy
platforms.
to, we'll put up all the Orange X Services Club details for Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn after this morning's chat. So if you do have any questions for Daniel or the helpful team down here, you can engage with him directly. But look, thank you so much for your time, Daniel. It was really interesting to learn more, I guess, about the different operations that are encompassed under the Orange X Services Club umbrella. Thank you for your time. But for everybody else, we hope you have a fantastic Friday and a great weekend. And tune in, same time next week when I sit down with Scott McLaughlin, the CEO of the Western Local Health District. But until then, have a great day and we'll see you soon.